Hello, my name is Michael Graham. I'm here on Front Royal Election 2020, and we have Josh. Josh is back. Yeah, now you're the seasoned politician now, right?
I hope so, yes, sir.
The first time you came in, this is the second time around, and we appreciate that. We're offering all candidates the opportunity to come back. You remember we started out that each candidate was offered the opportunity to pick out of 20 questions 5 and address them. Josh has a new set of questions that he wants to address above and beyond what we talked about last time. And I'm really really excited to have you back in here, Josh. Like I said, you have a little gray hair I see on the side. That's not because of all this politicking, is it?
Oh, geez. Well, it could be, but try to keep it trimmed back as much as I can. So.
Well, tell me now. You're into this thing. What are we 3 weeks away from the election or something like that?
I know it's sped up. I mean, it seems like yesterday it was. Well, we got 2 months. Now it's a matter of weeks.
Wow.
So
it's coming down to the wire.
Exactly. Yeah. It's going to be up here before we know it.
So what is what are some of the things you've learned since you were in here last? I mean, just kind of.
Well,
issue is, or just kind of like being running for an office.
Of course, I've done a lot of door knocking since the last time we spoke.
Are people actually opening the door?
People are actually opening the doors, or I've gotten warm receptions across the board.
Oh, that's good.
I've got to talk to people from all walks of life. I've learned a lot from what the people are wanting, what the people are looking forward to getting in the election, and I think that above all else, it's going to make me not just as a more informed councilman, but even just a resident of Front Royal, just to know about where we live. And I've always advocated. Even like I said, I keep saying I'm a historian. Some of the most significant things you can learn about are about where the very spot where you live. Right. And it's surprising that we don't take advantage of a lot of the neighborhood around us. What people know, what people do. So I've actually made a few friends too. So yeah.
Well, that's good.
So
that's good. Nobody shut the door on you, did they?
No, I've not really had any rejection so far. So I've been fortunate in that regard.
Well, that's great. It's I have received a lot of compliments. You were like one of the first ones to come in and actually talk.
Mm-hmm.
And I have been receiving a lot of compliments saying, thank you, Mike, and the candidates for coming in, because this is apparently the first time we've ever talked to candidates that had more than 3 minutes to explain some of their policies, which is, the complexity of what we deal with on a day-to-day basis has to be maybe covered in a little more in depth than just a 1 minute response like you had to do on the Chamber of Commerce.
Right.
But actually, I have to give the compliment to the Chamber of Commerce thing. That was a lot better than it has been in the past, and actually, people were able to get out there and talk some real issues. So that's why this is important. So let's kick it off here, because Josh, you stunned me with one of the questions, because no one has even attempted to this, and like you said, you're learning a lot of stuff around the community that people don't know about, and this is one of those little sleepers.
Mm-hmm.
When you look at Front Royal, that between 60 and 70% of all the homes are rental properties.
That's right, Mike, and that's something that that's known amongst residents, but it's something that needs to be pointed out, and maybe it's a good thing, maybe it's a bad thing. I know it's a lot of the rentals here seem to be long term, but the question was brought up, of course, how do we increase home ownership from these rental properties?
Well, you really want to help the people who rent to maybe creating an opportunity that they can actually become a homeowner.
Correct.
Right.
It's trying to increase the homeowner percentage here in town.
Right.
And I've done some research in regards to that, and I keep going back to saying hey, let's look at what we already have available to us, and I think that one of the areas that we can look into are grants. The Virginia Housing Office offers grant program areas in 3 main areas, with network capacity, community market support, and homeowner market support.
Wow.
And with the capacity building grant, for instance, it provides funding for a municipality to enhance its organizational goals for housing.
Oh, really?
Yes, and it's something that it's available across the board.
Right.
I think that the town, whatever active involvement we have in it, I think it's something that could be explored. And there's also the housing counseling and informational grants.
Mm-hmm.
Now, what these do, these actually involve just some courses, some instructions on people to become homeowners. What to
Right.
expect. How to walk them through the mortgage process.
Oh, sure.
And there's funding out there available to support municipalities to do that as well. And
Well, I think one of the biggest challenges we have, in addition to a lot of rental properties, is it seems that we don't have enough workforce housing.
correct.
We hear that, and we know the EDA is that's all they talk about is workforce housing. We don't have enough workforce housing.
Mm-hmm.
And believe it or not, yesterday I got my hair cut just for you today, yesterday. But I was talking to the woman who cuts my hair, and she was telling me just how hard it is just to find something to rent now.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So if you're coming in as a new teacher, or a new nurse, or a new police officer, or something else, some occupation like that, they say it's almost next to impossible to find rentals.
Right.
And that's really amazing. And I think the other challenge that you have, Josh, and I'd like to hear what you think about it, is the fact now, some of these rental property owners are now starting to some of the properties will either be foreclosed on, or they will be telling the renters to leave because they can't pay the rents.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of coupled, I think you're going to see a wave in our community of that happening, because now it seems like, and I don't know whether you know, but I've talked to a couple realtors, it seems that everybody is leaving the city again.
Mm-hmm.
And they're coming out here
Mm-hmm.
and scarfing up some of these homes
Mm-hmm.
and really displacing some of the workforce that has been here.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's a dilemma. Do you? You think that's going to be hard to deal with?
Yeah. If you look at it, from a multifaceted approach, a lot of what you're talking about, Mike, it also involves, buildings that have been blighted, have been neglected.
Okay.
Some of the landlords just simply have abandoned their properties, it seems like, and maybe not kept up their end of the deal as far as
Right.
their tenants go. And I think that, again, we can look at what we already have in place as far as ordinances goes, and
Okay.
I would dare say that there are several ordinances that some of these places aren't in compliance with, and we just we look at what we already can enforce, and make these owners hold them accountable.
Hold them accountable.
Yeah, and say, hey, these rules are not being, up to par. Or these rules aren't being kept, or in check. So, I think that that's a first step, and get the word out there, and if you could get some, get some enforcement in place, of what we already have, I think that's the first step, and then and then if the word gets out, like, hey, these guys, they're actually meaning business here.
That's right.
Then, hopefully things will fall in place even more so. But again, I think the first step is looking at what we already have to enforce.
Right.
And also too, there are grants out there available for, should these properties be condemned, or should these properties
Sure.
go up, have a change in ownership, that we could the town could possibly go in and repurpose some of these buildings for housing.
Yeah. That's true. Yeah.
So that's one way of looking at it. So there's, you got to look at it in a cost-effective way,
Right.
And you also have to look at it in a way that there's not going to be a quick and easy answer for it, a quick and easy solution for it. It's going to take it's going to take steps. And like I said, the first step, I think, is looking at what we already have to enforce,
Right.
and going from there.
Well, that kind of falls in line with your profession of project manager.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
Which I think is very valuable to
Yeah.
the town, because your thought processes are, first we got to evaluate the situation and the assets, and then kind of develop a plan that will then support what you're trying to do.
Well, it also makes fiscal sense too, because you're not creating any more red tape. You're not creating
Right.
more of a bureaucracy. It's like I said, it's just looking at what we already have.
Yeah.
And moving forward.
No, I think it's great, because, like I said, this has been kind of a sleeper issue, and nobody really knew about it, but until you go and check the electric records, which
Right.
you might not own the building, but the electric service is under the renter's name.
Right. Yep.
And so when you match one to the other, you realize there is a large number of properties that are rental properties. There's nothing wrong with that. I mean,
Right. I don't
see nothing wrong
Yeah.
with that, as long as the owners, and what you're talking about, having some rules in place that would actually hold the owners accountable for actually keeping their properties up and providing a nice place for these to live. Is that what you're saying?
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. And like I said, I think that falls in line with some of the blighted buildings that we have here.
Right.
And again, there are people that have been living here for rent. As far as renting for several years. My neighbors, for instance, they've been
Yeah.
here for 20 plus years,
Right.
you know, and they're renters. So
No, like I said, I mean, but I think if they had the opportunity, like you're saying,
right,
I think most of them would try to rent, and I think, and maybe get your opinion, I think that Front Royal has a great opportunity to kind of redo some of the older housing stock and modernize it,
Yep.
and open up that opportunity for first-time homeowners to come
Exactly.
in and buy it and start a family, young family,
Mm-hmm.
and everything else.
Mm-hmm.
So, I,
No, you're right. I mean, and that involves looking at some of our zoning
Okay.
zoning ordinances. We may have to. We may have to revise some of our zoning ordinances for what, even commercial properties, for instance.
Yeah.
We may have to consider rezoning them for residential use, in some of these cases. So, and it just has to be, like I said, it has to be cost effective, and you don't try to correct more red tape,
Right.
So at the same time, so it's
well, Front Royal has had a reputation for years of being very hard to do business in or
Right.
work in. So,
well, that's another issue too. You got to streamline your zoning permit process as well,
Right.
and try to keep try to limit your public intake, on takes that on instances that are really needed.
right.
But that'll actually help draw builders in as well, because you got to get their buy-in as well. If you're going to build new houses, you have to make it friendly for contractors to come in too and work.
Right.
And I've heard stories about how some of the contractors, it's difficult, almost impossible for them to get permits passed.
Well, I think that's
So-
more tied into the county, isn't it? More so.
Well, I'm talking about for town as well,
Yeah,
but
okay.
working here in town.
Okay.
So, I mean, for some of these properties that if you're going to build or if you're going to renovate, you have to have permits.
Right. Right.
And I've heard stories that some of these contractors have had difficulty trying to work here in town
Right.
with zoning ordinances, and that's got to be streamlined. Like I said, there's some ordinances may be outdated,
Right.
and some ordinances need to be enforced.
Right.
I think so.
Well, Josh, that kind of ties into your next thing you want to talk about a little bit, is about what's the critical components in attracting businesses to the community and new families. And that would be a great way to have
Right.
new families come in, is to have some sort of first home starter program
Right.
that's backed up by the government, or in whatever way they can through grants and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
And then businesses, the blighted buildings and creating all that, that's all part of attracting business. What other things are you thinking about when it comes to attracting?
Well, and this comes from just my friends that have moved out here west from the D.C. metro area. One of the big draws, of course, is our schools, and that's something we got to work with on the county, and there's got to be, an effort to show that there's quality education here available. Warren County has, one of the highest percentages for population of homeschooling here.
Yes.
In this, and it's even been exacerbated with this recent pandemic, of course.
Yeah.
But schools are one area. Another issue is our low municipal costs. With our utilities, being reasonable compared to most municipalities throughout the
Very
region.
much so.
And of course our tax base as well. We're fortunate to have one of the lowest tax bases for a municipality within a couple of hours drive of D.C.
Well, yeah, that's
So-
very attractive.
Yeah.
After
Yep.
you've been down toward Washington, how much different it is down there than it is here.
Exactly.
I was
Yeah.
I was checking my electric bill, so I have all the services. You get the bill,
Right.
and air conditioning was running full speed. Right in the middle of the summer, and we have a fairly large house, and my electric bill was like $280. Where my friends down in Washington there had a 2-bedroom apartment, and it was $500 or $600 a month versus my 200. So it is a really big difference when when it comes to services like that. It's really attractive to people. Well, let me ask you, because you're talking about creating workforce quality homes and starter homes for first-time families coming in, which would attract these families. You're talking about attracting businesses by, I think you said last time you wanted to kind of get a plan together, a business plan to evaluate the assets, as you would say, and say attract businesses based on the assets that would match up with them, which is cool. But then one other side of that, of course, is tourism. And a lot of people have a lot of comments to say about tourism. What's
Right.
your thoughts on that?
Well, we got to work with the county for cross promotion. I mean, if people are coming to Warren, or if people are coming to Front Royal, they're coming through Warren County. Again, I think there are vehicles in place already that we could utilize to do better cross promotion. I know the relationship between the town and county has been very strenuous recently, and I think that we're hopefully making a step in the right direction here with this recent progress made with the police department. But and if you take that to a bigger picture, there's cross promotion throughout the Shenandoah Valley. As a pilot, flying into Winchester, I dare say there aren't many people that realize that Warren County is actually promoted by the Winchester Regional Airport.
Well, I didn't know that.
So, and we are part of the Shenandoah Valley. We're not just a gateway to the Shenandoah Drive, of course, but
Sure.
we're a key destination here in this region. So, I think that there's also chances for us to look at other communities as well. I think that we could perhaps do a shared event of some sort. If some of the other towns in the area want to team up. Like I said, I'm just thinking at a grander scheme right here. But also too, we need to get a firm grasp here locally with our tourism board. There's right now I know we've got it subcontracted out, I guess, to a private sector.
Yeah, I'm a little confused. I don't know exactly how that's working now. So.
Well, at the recent town council meeting that I attended, this firm came in and they did a presentation of statistics. That they were reaching out via social media and through the website Discover Front Royal, and I think they're doing a great job in that regard. They were showing how many people were viewing each component of what they were promoting through the website and through other cross promotion pieces such as the Luray Caverns. I think they're even at the state level. There was some promotion here for Front Royal, but I'd like to see what the true benefit of that is. For the town, what are the real numbers? What are the tangible numbers that we can see? I mean, has there been an increase in tourism traffic as a result of this work? I'm a little baffled as to, it's a private industry, but I can't say for sure if they have the best interests of the town because there's no town involvement in it, and I think that we need to get our tourism staff back in check. I think we need to get somebody here that.
So you're really talking about maybe pulling it back in and
Exactly.
get more control of it, because I know that when this first launched, I guess there was a survey that went out how many communities actually outsource their tourism, and the majority of the community said no, it doesn't work to outsource.
Right.
And there was a couple, of course, that outsourced it, and maybe it was successful, but certainly the amount that kept it in-house,
right,
or worked with the county to do a joint venture between the two, was much more prevalent across municipalities. So again, I'm wide open for new ideas and thinking things differently. On this one, I don't know. I have no idea.
Well, that's something that's a very difficult question to answer. Is what do you use to measure their performance? Are they actually what are the numbers compared to And then this year, unfortunately with the pandemic, this is a really bad year probably to use as a baseline. So I give them it's like you got to look at it that way too.
Right.
But I truly believe, having been involved, in the tourism industry as a volunteer and as a worker at the museums here, some of the museums here in the Shenandoah Valley, I've always found it most important that, local promotion needs to be done by locals. Because they're the ones that locals here. We're the ones that know the town the best. We know what's happening in real time. And I think to really get a pulse of what the town represents, it has to be grassroots. It has to be here. It has to be kept here, or at least it has to be based here.
Well, Josh, I don't understand exactly what they did. Are there still people in the visitor center that actually?
There's still people
talk
there.
To people?
Yeah, there's still people there.
Okay.
Like I said, it's.
But that's unfunded, isn't it? I mean, aren't they? Well, they're volunteers, I guess. But
yeah.
I mean, who leads it? I mean, is there a leader that manages the volunteers at the visitor center? Or?
Well, I mean, there's some. From what I understand, there's still some structure there. That keeps the scheduling and whatnot. But again, that's just a visitor center there. So people are coming there to
Get
you know,
information.
to get information. You know, it's not necessarily going out; it's people coming there. You know, and I think that, you know, having someone that knows Front Royal that could, you know, promote, again, not just promote the town, but, you know, cross promote with other municipalities throughout the region,
Right.
because, like I said, we are tied into we are part of the Shenandoah Valley, and we could, you know, we could look at what's already out there as far as promotion goes, and two, you know, if we work with the county more so than what we have been recently, you know, what's going to be good, I keep saying this, what's going to be good for us is going to be good for them.
Absolutely.
Because, you know, getting to Front Royal, you have to go through the county. And I think the county, you know, they're really making an effort to try to promote both the town and county. I don't see any lack of effort there, you know, on their part. I just think that the town, you know, town has a stake in that it needs to cement, I guess.
Right.
You know,
So to kind of follow up with one of your earlier questions, because you were talking about getting dilapidated buildings, you know, cleaning that part up.
Mm-hmm.
And as you go down to where between 400,000 and 800,000 people hit that area right across from the 7-Eleven,
Mm-hmm.
and you know, down as before the entry of the drive, at least twice a year.
Mm-hmm.
Some of the buildings that aren't too beautiful or in use at all has been lined up on that one side for a long time.
Right.
And that's, as you're driving down, you look over and that's what you see.
Mm-hmm.
What does that concern you, or what would you do in trying to clean that up a little bit?
Well, again, it just goes back to say, hey, you know, if what ordinances are being broken? You know, if there's something that needs to be taken care of with what we already have that's, you know, in place as far as enforcement, you know, let's do that first. You know, hold the owners accountable.
Right.
You know, and you know, some say, well, maybe you try to give some tax incentives for situations like that. But it's like, well, I think that's a very thin line, you know, to cross, because if you do it one spot, well, what's to say you're not going to do it across the board? You know, and I think that.
Well, you do it for one, you got to do it for
exactly.
everybody. So whatever you decide, you got to be willing to say, okay, if somebody else comes along.
Exactly, it's got to be something that you can do across the board.
Right.
You know, and again, it's if it's something to where, you know, these owners either they got to be incentivized to either do something with their property, or perhaps, you know, sell it, you know, or sublease it. You know, just say, hey, you know, there's got to be some push, you know, some push by the town to make that happen.
Right.
You know.
Well, but let me interject one other thing. So to get tourism, you got to take care of some of these buildings, and that you got to create a value for somebody to come and buy them and develop them.
Right.
Do you think that the town needs their own EDA?
No.
Okay.
No.
Or use the existing one now. I mean, what's your thoughts on that?
Well, I think we need to use the existing one we have now.
Okay.
I'm not about creating more government and creating more red tape.
Right.
I don't think we hide from the problems that we're having with the one we're dealing with now by creating another one.
Right.
You know, there's been some points made about the cost of it. You know, how much it would cost to work with the current EDA compared to having our own EDA.
Right.
I don't know I don't see any substance behind what those numbers were stated, but I think that, you know, as a whole, again, comes from me, door knocking and the input that I've gathered from folks, is that the consensus seems to be that the people want to work with what we have and get this current get the current situation resolved with our EDA as it stands.
So that's one of the issues. Then you're finding what people
are
really concerned about. Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
Oh well, let's deviate, because I like that. I mean, because I like that. What other? And we'll get back to your last question here in a minute, but I want to ask you, because I'm trying to get the input from the people, because you're out there talking to them. You know, they'd like to see the EDA. The people you're talking to like to see, you know, one EDA, and primarily where it is now. Do they consider, and you also consider, that the EDA that we have right now is different than what the EDA was that got in trouble?
Well, you know, I've kind of gotten mixed responses on that. Some people aren't aware of the change in personnel that the EDA has had. You know, when I'm discussing that with people, I do point that out. Like, hey, look, you know, the EDA and the Board of Supervisors, you know, there's been a changing of the guard, if you will, and they're making strides to try to remedy, you know, their stake in the partnership. And when I tell people that, like, oh, okay, really? And then there's, you know, okay, great, you know. And I said, but the town needs to step up to the plate, you know. And they've been reaching out to the town. And then there's also the folks, you know, that are aware of it, and those folks, you know, are even more are even more in agreement with you know, with the town working with the EDA.
Okay.
They're saying, yeah, well, you know, we've heard they've got more. You know, they've got some more experienced people up there. You know, they've seemed to be trying to make some movement here with some of their properties. You know, and trying to get.
Well, they're trying to clean up. They're trying to clean up the mess from the previous
group. They're trying to clean up. You know, they're trying to do their part to clean things up. You know, and when I say that, you know, again, those people that know that are saying at the same time, well, the town does need to come up to par. You know, so.
Well, I think it's a very important thing you communicate this, because I find that people get really confused what's in the town and the county, or you know, it might be a county, they blame it on the town. And I think for the audience that you're talking to right now, I think it's very important that what you just said was that they have changed all the people on the EDA. That is not the same EDA than it was that's under so much scrutiny right now.
Right.
These are different individuals, different skill sets, different talents. It's a different organization, and they're doing their best to try to clean up all the mess from the previous ones. And with the change in the leadership in the county, they also are putting pressure on them to clean everything up. And I think they're actually watching them now, or they're overseeing them like they should have done, which the past group never did. So I think I think you're absolutely right. I think it's a different organization, and I hope that the citizens understand they're not the same anymore. Okay.
Right.
Yeah. Well, you know, it's what other things are just kind of hit you of what people are really concerned about when you talk to them?
Well, again, this is one of the first points that I make on my campaign cards is transparency.
Right.
Folks want to know what's going on.
Right.
A lot of the people I've spoken with, you know, they don't really know what's going on as far as what ordinances the town are discussing. You know, the current issues. They, of course, you know, most folks know about the EDA issue, but you know, the day-to-day operation of the town. You know, what does town council actually do? You know, for them, you know, to an extent. So, and I think that, you know, one of the first points I make on my platform is transparency. Is just to let people know what's going on. You know, and you know, if good news or bad news, you know, people need to know. People have a right to know.
Yeah.
You know, and that's, you know, if I'm elected, that's what I've pledged to do. You know, hell, I'm going to every meeting you're going to see what was voted on, where I voted, why I voted on it. You know, a specific topic. And you know, it sounds simple, but you know, that's very concerning. You know, across the board, of all the people I've talked to, that's a resounding voice.
So that's pretty consistent. I mean, they might not like this or that, but the transparency thing seems to be very important.
Right.
And I guess they feel that the previous group now hasn't been very transparent.
Right. It's like, you know, why are they hiding? You know, it seems like, you know, there's a sense that information's been kept. You know.
Right.
So, you know, and you know, and I think if the town council can be more transparent, then I think that'll be a domino effect in some of these other issues that'll get resolved.
More confidence in because really the challenge as being an elected official in a community like this, we are a municipality and we are a republic. And being a historian, a republic is where people elect other people because they trust them to look out for them and do the right thing for the citizens they put in there. Okay?
Right.
And so they trust you with your judgment that they're going to say, look, my life is so busy, I don't have time, I'm trying to survive, so Josh, we got to trust you to take, not take advantage of us.
Right.
And I think that's very valuable. And And even though they might not understand all the issues, that seemed to be one of the most important things, is just transparency and being honest and looking after them, because they don't have time to get into water or sewer. They just trust you to make the good decisions. Was that a fair statement?
That's exactly a fair statement.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean that's how most citizens go through, go about their day-to-day life with politics.
Right.
So we rely on the people that we vote for to make decisions, make the tough decisions.
Right.
So.
All right. Well, that's great, because now I told Josh right before we started that I'm going to throw a little ringer in on you here, and because what we're talking about, transparency and everything else, kind of ties into what I think are the two bigger issues that just evolved, which wasn't on the list and everything, because these more stuff happens as the time goes, and it was brought up at the Chamber of Commerce, which was the opiate problem that we have in this community. And why has it kind of gotten bigger? But more importantly, it was brought up about 10 years ago, that our community, because policing is a big issue now, just all over the place. And it was brought up that about 10 years ago that Front Royal had a very active community policing program that was brought in by Chief Recrucci, I think is his name, and then it was picked up by Williamson and then Furr. And then once Furr left, then there was a movement in the town to actually do away with several programs. I wrote them down here. It's called the VIPS program, which is the volunteer police. At their heyday, they had between 40 and 55 volunteer members that would help the police to do parade routing and all the stuff that normally they didn't have the manpower to do. They helped. Very active, very active group. They had an advisory board. They had a foundation that was formed, the police foundation. And then one big thing that they really pushed was these neighborhood watches. Now, I think at the heyday of this, they had between 8 and 12 neighborhood watches. And so in Front Royal, that's a lot of neighborhood watches. And for people who don't know what neighborhood watches are, they're really just citizens within that community that would walk around and make sure nobody's doing anything. And they couldn't do anything other than call the police and say, look, we're witnessing something, come out here. And I think during that time, we didn't really have a big crime issue.
Right.
And I'd like to think it's because of all these people that were assisting police officers. Now, like I said, they did away with that, and that now I think they still have the advisory board and the police foundation, which I think has been very active with vests and workout equipment, which is very good. But the focus of having the volunteer VIPs and the neighborhood watches is gone. So what do you think about it? I mean, you think that's a good idea? You think that maybe if you get on council that this is something you might want to re-look at or re-engage with?
Absolutely, Mike. Those components that you're mentioning all have to do with crime prevention, which any police community will tell you, hey, if we can prevent crime, we'll take that any day.
Right.
And if you look at, the reduction in crime from municipalities in the area that have neighborhood watches, that have volunteer and police service personnel, or volunteers, I should say, you're going to see a reduction in crime, and I think that that's something that should be brought back for our community, and if we can prevent crime to any extent, through safe means and again a cost-effective means, then I'm all for it, and it's especially since now we have evidence, as you just suggested, to see the effects of having a crime watch community with VIPs compared to now when we don't have those components.
Right.
So I think there's very hard evidence to suggest that the town was better off having those than not having those.
Right. So, and it doesn't really cost. I mean, it doesn't cost.
No, it's again. That's why I said it's really cost effective.
Yeah,
so,
it seems like that.
And if if we could, if we can work with the police, I think that the current police chief now, I think he's looking to from what I understand, he's looking to do more involvement or get more involvement,
more community involvement.
Yeah, with situations like that. So.
Well, with budgets tight, like you said, if budget's tight and you get a lot of eyes out on the street, because that ties kind of like in. Do you think having more community police would help this opioid epidemic that we're in now? You think that would
Well,
help?
absolutely.
Why would you think that would help?
Well, I mean, again, it comes down to crime prevention. I mean,
Okay.
if word just gets out that, hey, if it stops that one dealer from going to a certain spot, or like I said, it's just a lot of little things come into play. If you stop, if you can prevent one instance of crime here, one instance of crime here, across the board, then yeah, you're going to start seeing the effects of it. But I think if word gets out, because criminals aren't going to want to aren't going to want to perform their activities in
Right.
broad daylight, or knowing people are going to watch them. So right now, I mean, that's the issue. Right now, it's being done. Sometimes some of this is probably being done right under our nose. And sometimes the obvious place to hide something is in broad daylight.
Right, that's true.
And I've having been involved with counter narcotics in my career, as law enforcement training.
Right.
One of the lessons I've learned is that, yeah, I mean, the drug community is going to keep moving as long as you get what you tolerate out of it.
Right.
So, and they're going to keep pressing that envelope until something happens. So.
Well, I would think it'd probably be more effective because now with our cell phones.
Yeah, absolutely.
I
Well,
mean,
now
back
yeah.
10 years ago, we didn't have the same technology. I mean, now they can record. They don't even just call the police and record the people
Yeah.
doing what they're not supposed to be doing, and you
Yeah.
got a record of it right there. So
Absolutely.
yeah. So Josh, I love what you're saying about that, because I think I've seen the results of community policing when I was involved, and it made my life as a town manager very much easier. And there was no intimidation by the VIPs.
Right.
They were out. We knew all the people who were volunteering. It wasn't any intimidation and anything else. You talked to Harry while he was down there standing by the thing. You can't walk here, and it was just a very pleasant.
Right. Well, again, and I'm gonna take that to a higher level.
Okay.
If you have activities like this in place with the VIPs and your neighborhood watches, what else are you doing? It's a big draw for families to come in, for businesses to come in.
Exactly.
So you look at it from that standpoint. If there's a reduction in crime as a result of it, that just makes our community that much more attractive.
Right.
So.
Wow, that's great. I'm sorry to pull that little.
That's good. That's good. I'm glad you brought that up. So.
So now we're down to the last one here, and we've kind of went really high, and now we're kind of get down into the operational stuff a little bit. And one of the things you wanted to talk about was a incident that happened. I guess I don't know. Time goes by so fast. I don't know a month ago.
Well, now there's been multiple instances. I think, but yeah.
But it's a pattern, and where there was a personal attack by one of the staff members of the citizens giving input into the citizens' input time, and it was we all saw it. I mean, it was all on tape, and that bothers you enough that you wanted to talk about it a little bit. So what do you want to say about that situation?
Well, I mean, I think that as an elected official, you have to take the high road in any situation like that. When you're, it's one thing to openly, congratulate or condone somebody, to say, hey, good job for what you're doing. That happens, fairly often with the town council meetings. But it's one thing to call somebody out on a personal attack, and I think that I just don't. I think it's very tasteless. I think that if there's all this talk about Robert's rules, which I've heard multiple times in these town council meetings, there's a two-way street. And also I understand the town council's situation of having to sit there, and and a lot of times these guys get attacked. So
you gotta take it. But that kind of comes with the territory.
That kind of comes with the territory, exactly. But it's just like, geez, it takes a lot of patience to do that. And I think that by showing some reservation, and you can say in broad terms, what your thoughts are, I think, in some, in states like that. But to call somebody out individually, I don't think that's, I just think that's very tasteless. And I think that, it shows, it just shows too much division, between, elected official and the people that they're representing.
Right. Like I said, it comes with the territory.
Right. Again, it's just something that I just wanted to brush over, and again, if I'm elected, I'll make a pledge to keep, try to keep my cool in any circumstance, and realize that, look, you're going to get stones thrown at you. Right. But it's just, how you react to those stones being thrown at you is key. And it says a lot about your character, and, just, and you, as a businessman, Mike, you know how it is, situations can be tough. Negotiations are tough, and when you're working for people, in this case, you're working for the citizens, the residents and citizens of the county and town. But it's you gotta maintain your composure.
Well, Josh, you referred that when I was involved in this, what I found was that your key is transparency.
Mm-hmm.
And citizens get upset. It becomes emotional.
Mm-hmm.
You can't really deal with an emotional person because
Right.
that's not really the problem. There's something else that is driving the emotion on whatever they're saying.
Right.
And in 3 minutes when they get up, they're totally emotional.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of that is driven by lack of transparency because they've either
Right.
heard or seen something they think is wrong and they're very upset and they come in.
Right.
And that's, like I said, it's just part of the nature. Whether you're a business guy where you have an upset customer, they're yelling and screaming at you about the service, and you find out that you really didn't do anything. It was one of their people that they didn't know about yet, but they took all the anger out on you. And I'm fine. I said, well, we love you as a customer. We're sorry. We'll try to do better, and just let's get through the facts. And I think that's the key that I see that's been lost a little bit is getting to the facts of stuff.
Right.
And that's maybe just our culture right now.
Right.
Maybe that's what it is. Nobody wants to get to the facts.
Yeah.
You get to the facts and then make a judgment, and
Right.
that way all the emotion leaves. And I think you're
Yeah.
right on track with transparency. Get to the facts and then make a non-emotional decision. That's the right decision. I think is
Right.
the key. That's just my.
Yeah, you're right. Like I said, again, I mentioned earlier, it's a two-way street, and we as residents, going up there to speak to the council like that, there's no reason to call anybody out by a specific name,
Right.
on their end as well. It's not really fair. You can address the council as a whole, not just point to specific people. But what you say on your own time is fine. But when you're there face to face, with the people that you're trying to speak with as a whole, if you're going to present your argument, present it to the whole council.
Right.
If you have it geared towards a specific member, but that's one thing. But again, it's a two-way street. It's the people. You have to maintain composure as well. So.
Right. Well, Josh, we've kind of finished. I will challenge you because you can come in as many times as you want to address some of the issues.
Mm-hmm.
I think that one that I found that people are very interested in now is this Valley Health anthem thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I had no idea. Now, I'm not affected, but my wife is. My wife's company is with 125 people.
Mm-hmm.
That's going to make life very difficult. And it's a big issue, and I saw that Mayor T-Walt was making an effort to at least reach out, but I think the decision is already made. I think they were going to make the decision by today. I think
Something, yeah. I've only got some very minimal knowledge of that. I understand.
Well, I'm not going to hold you to that.
Yeah, I know.
I'd like for you to come back and
Yeah.
come back and say, hey, look, what
Yeah.
happens if that happens? Is there a place at the community that can do something about it?
Right.
Bring them back to the table. I have no idea because you got two very huge corporations fighting with each other.
Right. Yeah, I only have peripheral information on
Yeah,
that,
yeah.
but I understand that that's a decision. That's going to be tricky for the town to get involved in.
Right.
Or the county to get involved in, for that matter. So you're dealing with two private entities,
Companies, yeah.
private companies, and there's squabble between them. Again, what line do you cross to make to come into play with that? So I think that it's going to have to be whatever approach, if there's an approach made by the town or county,
Right.
it's got to be very very carefully calculated. I should say.
I think there's a resolution floating around by
Yeah.
maybe it was in a work session to come up to.
Yeah.
At least we're responding to it, but
And that's good. I think that for something of this magnitude, there should be a response given.
Okay,
To
good.
some way or another. So I have heard it's going to be a very dramatic impact on a lot of the residents here.
Yeah.
So me personally, it's not going to be affecting, but again, what peripheral information I've learned about it, it's going to be a very significant issue with the health care of the community. Yeah.
No, I agree.
So.
I agree. So, Josh, man, it's always enjoyable having you come in and talk. This is your moment now. Look at the camera and ask the citizens what to do.
Well, folks, again, my name is Josh Ingram. I'm running for town council for Front Royal. For those who I've visited so far and knocked on your door, appreciate your warm hospitality. If you haven't seen me yet, there's a good chance you'll see Betty and I walking around your neck of the woods here very shortly. If you have any questions or concerns, feel free to reach out to me. I'm always out and about. Thank you.
Thanks, Josh. Thanks for coming in.
Thank you, Mike. Thanks, guys.